Hey everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are excited that you're here today, and as you start to come into the webinar room, we're going to take a few minutes here to introduce ourselves. I'm Dave, Laundromat Millionaire Menz, and this webinar is a Laundromat Millionaire webinar called "The Three Proven Strategies for Success in Modernized Laundromats." And I'm excited to have some good friends with me today. I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute here. Before we do, just a bit of housekeeping. First of all, I just wanted to, like I said, thank you for joining us today. I think this is going to be very, very valuable for hopefully all of you. I know we're looking forward to having a little bit of fun and talking laundromats, which is what we all enjoy doing from time to time. So thanks for being here today. But now I want to turn it over to my friend Jordan Berry. What I've asked him to do is kind of help me co-host this event. And so I'm going to turn it over to him and let him run with the conversation from there. So Jordan, it's all you.
Let me introduce you to Ross Dodds. Ross is here in LA, and he's got, what do you have right now, 9 or 10? Ross, how many you got?
8.
You got 8 right now?
For the moment.
And looking to expand. And you do Wash Club LA, right, which is pickup and delivery.
Yes.
And Luke, how many you got over there these days?
82.
Nah. Well, our family has over 70, but me, I own and operate 31 today.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I didn't know you guys all had 70 plus. That's crazy. You know, if you've ever listened to the Laundromat Resource podcast, that Luke is sort of a running joke on the show that he basically just buys one a day or something like that. So, and then Dave, obviously, he's got, I don't know, 5 or 6 laundromats and has a huge pickup and delivery business. So, obviously, these 3 guys are all stars. These guys are rock stars in this business. They know the business. They know the business well, and they know exactly what they're doing. So that's why we have them on the webinar today. Yeah, I want to start off with, hey, there's a lot of people in here who own laundromats, and there's a lot of people in here who are looking to buy their first laundromat. So I want to make sure we give something for everyone on here. So let's start with this. You guys being, high perform. I'll call you high performers in this industry. What do you think we should be looking for when we're buying a laundromat today? What should we be looking for? Ross, why don't you start? Because you're in an aggressive buying phase right now. So why don't you start? What are you looking for in a laundromat when you're looking to buy?
I mean, I typically like more rundown zombie mats. So I'm looking for a landlord that is interested in the laundromat being on their property and understanding that that is usually typically an anchor tenant. And then from there, I'm kind of just looking at what I'm going to change in the laundromat and what I almost retool everything that we purchase. I don't really care what the numbers are currently, unless the price is over a certain amount.
Awesome.
I'll follow on that. Absolutely. You're looking for strong demographics. You're looking for opportunity to improve. What that may look like is, maybe it's poor management. Maybe it's rundown equipment. Maybe it's just got a bad reputation. But you're looking opportunities to improve the laundromat. So that's the biggest thing. Real estate, whether it's a lease or you're buying the real estate, we always look for opportunities where we can buy the real estate, but that's not always realistic. And it's we've grown a lot through acquisition, and to do that, most of the time those spaces are lease spaces. So we're looking for a good lease, long-term lease where we are an anchored tenant. So I think landlords are slowly starting to understand the value of a laundromat tenant and how we're there to stay and we're anchored. So that helps on our side, but always looking for things I can improve. Bin price of the store, if it's really low, I'm gonna, like Ross, I don't really look at the numbers. I get a lot of questions about, well, if it's this, that. Well, I'm looking at the potential, because that's really what you're after.
Yeah, I mean, I think I found a little camera that works. Sorry about the awkward angle, and terrible quality. But I think those are great things to be looking for, and especially if you're looking to buy your first laundromat, man, there aren't two better people that you want to be listening to on what they're doing and kind of being a fly on the wall and how they're finding laundromats for sale. Dave, Laundromat Menz, Millionaire Menz over here. You got any advice? What should people be looking for when they're looking to buy their first laundromat or their next laundromat?
Yeah, no, I can concur with what Luke and Ross said, but what I want to add to the equation, and I know they take this into account, is what I'm always looking for is I'm looking for the laws of supply and demand to be tipped in my favor. I think a lot of times we talk about location, we talk about demographics, street access, parking, and all those things are important. But at the end of the day, if you're in an oversaturated market, none of that other stuff really matters, to be honest. You're looking to solve problems. As entrepreneurs, we're not looking to acquire an old rundown laundromat or even a new turnkey laundromat in a market that's oversaturated. If the demographics, the population suggest that a 5 mile radius can support a 10 laundromats and there's 20, well, guess what? It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have. That's an oversaturated market. The laws of supply and demand are not tipped in your favor. So that's always the first thing that I'm looking for. I'm looking for an opportunity to serve people who are in pain, meaning they're not properly being served by the laundromat owners in that community. So that I believe that's the be all end all. I don't think you could even be that great at running a laundromat, to be honest with you. And I think I have an example of that, especially early on back in the day. That one of the few things I did right was I acquired a location that within 20 miles of me there were 9 other laundromats, and not a one of them had a clue what they were doing. And I didn't know what I was doing back then either, but I figured it out over time, and none of them even tried to. And that was really the springboard to my success. So I think you're looking for a market where the laws of supply and demand are tipped in your favor.
Killer advice. And I think that, as you're going about, whether you're buying your first or you're buying your, 78th, if you're Luke and his family, whatever it is, I mean, the fundamentals stay the same. And that's why I was kind of curious about what you guys are doing, because the fundamentals you guys are working with is working, right? Like, you guys all are multiple store owners. You are all expanding and growing, your business is scaling out. And so you're buying laundromats in, and once you have a formula that works and you understand the basics, you can keep rolling like that. Okay. So I want to jump into, this is where I think you guys might have some really unique input for us. And I want to jump into for you guys, especially with multiple stores, but what are the keys to maximizing the profit in your laundromats? How are you making sure that these things are making money and making, a good profit? Luke, can you start us off with that one?
Yeah, I'll say increase sales. So it's easy. It's a lot easier to get bottom line if you increase the top line. And to increase the top line, there's things we can really do as laundry owners. For us, the bar's set really low over the years because of the zombie mats out there, because of the high capital it takes to really create a laundry like Ross does and like Dave does. So, our industry got a bad rep, and we started to kind of, the bar was here. So exceeding that for a laundry customer is really simple. So I mean, raising the top line really helps. Of course, efficient equipment. When you do these investments, we're basically selling utilities through washers and dryers, at least on the self-service side. And so we want good utility savings. Some of the utilities that we pay are half of what we paid years ago when some of the equipment was older. But marketing is not something anybody talks about. It was actually not even a word in the laundromat dictionary years ago. But really having an offer, having a value proposition, not just putting that you have a clean facility that's open, generous hours, but you actually do. and not just saying you have good customer service and that you invest in your staff, but you actually do, and you train them. And I think the bottom line for us, at least, takes care of itself when you serve people right. Like Dave said earlier, you want to find a market that what I call is underserved, like you said, supply and demand. But I'm always looking, people tell me they're coming to North Carolina, put in a store, man, call me. I can tell you where there's a need. You don't need to go, where the market's served really well. There may be a lot of stores and it not be served well, but you got to make sure that you, the last thing in the world I always say is that you don't want to throw a party and no one come. So make sure you put this in a great location in an area that's underserved. And by underserved, I mean the laundries that do exist are not serving their clientele well. So,
I think a good question just popped up. What metrics are you using to make sure you're in that area, a good area, and that it's underserved? What are you looking at to determine that?
For me, it's experience. It's demographics, of course. It's rent ratio, and it's experience. I go to the location. I, pray. I really try to be realistic with myself. And then, when I pull the trigger on doing it, I don't do it halfway. So we do it the whole way, same model everywhere. Completely new equipment and sold out to delivering an excellent customer experience. And then I base my equipment mix on the demographics, and then I base it off a number of turns per day. And that's how we get some conservative projections. I always keep my projections conservative. Everybody can handle the good. Tell me how bad it can get. So.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one, especially if you're buying your first laundromat, is use those conservative. I can't get over this horrible angle here. Especially if you're, buying your first one, you want to use the conservative stuff because, anybody who knows my story, I had a really bad experience getting into this business. And a big part of the reason for that was because I was sold an unrealistically high experience, and I was really excited about it because those numbers look really good, right? But nobody kind of laid out for me, and I didn't know how to do it for myself, how to, be conservative on those numbers, and that I should be conservative on those numbers. I just didn't know any better. So I think that's great advice. Real quick, I know we don't want to get too much into the details, nitpicky here, but you mentioned rent ratios. Are you looking, and that's going to vary depending on your location, but for you specifically, where you're at, are you looking at a specific rent ratio?
Yeah, the higher the better. We want at least 35 to whatever ceiling, but probably a minimum of 30 to 35 percent rent ratio. We want to have dense population. You're going to have a high rent ratio because that means people are living vertical. They're living in apartment buildings and whatnot, and that's where typically most laundromats are successful.
Yeah, and I've just seen in the chat here a couple of times, people are asking about where to get those demographics and how to understand those. I think a great place to get them would be either from your distributor or a broker in your area who understands laundromats. They can get those demographic reports and help you understand those right now. Okay, I want to ask Ross here in a second. He's over there in the chat answering questions, which is awesome. I want to ask you real quick, Ross, can you talk to us about, you said you're buying kind of zombie mats and fixing them up. How are you maximizing profits? What are you doing differently than the previous owners of these mats that you're taking over?
Well, like Luke said, we go in and just redo them. I think we focus too much in this industry about price and our competition next door, that we cannot be higher priced. And Dave says it all the time, value proposition. I find that people, our customers talk about price less than we do. They want a nice place. Everybody likes nice things. And if the nicest thing they get to do that week is go to the laundromat, which is a chore that most people don't like, then they're going to pick the nicest laundry, even if it costs them $1 more per machine. If they're sold on price, then they're not going to come to me, and that's fine. But we're finding that that is just the better route for us, is to provide the clean, bright, new, safe place. Same with going card. People will tell me demographics don't allow to go card. That's the same argument as demographics don't allow me to raise my price. That's just not true as far as I can see so far. I do have certain stores that have taken longer to turn around. I mean, I'm not saying that they're profitable in 2 months, but the word gets out, and we give back in the communities, which is really important for us also. And eventually that all flows to the customer, and then they start to come to us. So
yeah, can I just say that that is the new wave of this industry? I think that Ross would have been chased out of the room even a decade ago, definitely 2 or 3 decades ago in this industry, by saying things like that, because this industry traditionally has been very just has not had that frame of thought. So if you're somebody who's getting into this business, or somebody who's been in the business for a little while, that is a mindset that I highly recommend that you adopt. One of the reasons that Ross and I are partnering on some stuff and working together is because I want to absorb that from Ross, because he is, I mean, I genuinely think he's changing, or a big part of this changing tide in the industry, and how we're thinking about business, how we're thinking about pricing, how we're thinking about value, how we're thinking about running our stores, all those things. Ross is really transforming those, and it's showing. I mean, he's growing rapidly right now here in LA, which is not easy to do. This is a highly competitive market, and he's doing awesome stuff. Dave, this is your webinar, dude. Talk to us about maximizing profits in your laundromats.
Yeah, what what Ross and Luke said is 100% accurate, no doubt about it. I want to drill down a little deeper just so we don't make any assumptions that people assume what we're talking about. I think a lot of times when we're experienced in an industry and we know the industry, that we take for granted when we use terms like value proposition. So value proposition is just the totality of the experience that the customer has from the time that they pull in your parking lot, in egress, ingress. How easy is it to get in and out of your parking lot? Are your spaces wide? Is there enough parking? What's the experience like when they walk inside? Are they greeted by an attendant, or are they there by themselves, or are they greeted by somebody panhandling? Every aspect of the customer experience is important. And as Jordan indicated, 10, 15 years ago, there was a good portion of this industry that believed that we were selling a commodity, meaning that it didn't matter the quality, it was just a wash, dry, and a fold, and that nothing else mattered. Did the washer work? Did it not work? And that's all that matters. And maybe in our past 20, 30 years ago, that pretty much was the industry. Our industry is evolving as our society evolves, and people are expecting more nowadays than ever before. That's a bad thing if you don't want to step up to the plate, if you don't want to deliver a high value proposition, if you don't want to deliver an outstanding customer experience. The good news is, if you do want to do that, people are willing to pay accordingly. And so a quick story is, I have 4 laundromats on the east side of Cincinnati, and they're all kind of a triangle around each other. In the middle of that triangle of stores, which we have a pretty good brand in our area, pretty good reputation. Somebody opened a spec store, a distributor did, probably 3 years ago now. They opened that store right in the middle. It was a beautiful laundromat, brand new, great location. They did a lot of things right. And they offered a loss leader of double loader for $1 for the first 3 months. They were just trying to capture market share. They're unattended. They're doing a lot of things wrong. They're not full service like us, but they captured a little bit of market share. To fast forward, they're still not really doing anything to compete with us on a service level. They see their business as a commodity. We see our business as serving the community in a 5-star experience. Fast forward 3 years, that brand new laundromat is now 3 years old. It's very tired. It's still unattended. They're still running $1 double loaders 3 years later. And of their 32 washers in their store, 28 of them are double loaders. They've been losing money for 3 years to try to capture market share. Meanwhile, all 4 of my stores are setting records. So they haven't captured market share from me. Now, maybe they've taken market share from local apartment complexes and things like that, but they haven't captured it from me, and they're not running a thriving business. So why do I tell you this story? The reason I tell you this story is because a lot of people like to have conversations around what we can and can't do. And people like Jordan and Ross and Luke and myself are here to elevate the industry. We're here to tell you that this is not only a theory of how you could run a laundromat, this is how we run our laundromats. I'm charging $4 for the same 20-pound machine that they're charging $1 for. My stores are a couple miles away. They're not in better locations. Guys, that's 300% difference. And by the way, I charge $1 for extra wash and $1 for extra rinse on those 20-pound machines. So hypothetically, if someone were to choose extra wash and rinse, they would be paying $6 for the same size machine to launder the same amount of laundry as $1 at a competitor. Why would they do that? Why would people pay that? The reason is because the value proposition is that much different. And that's really how we have to start looking at our business. Not that it's not important to have a nice, clean, safe place to do laundry. Not that it's not important that the machines work. Of course, those are important. But guys, that has to be the floor for our industry. The expectation, that should be the bottom of the barrel. That should not be the top of our industry. And the people on this panel here today are here for no other reason than we want you to know and understand that you can do that. And I'm guessing, in fact, I know for a fact that some of the people in the comments are also operating their stores this way, and they're nodding their heads yes. And so that's the answer to the question, is your value proposition. And if your value proposition reflects a 3, 4, 5x of total value and experience when they come into your store and do business, they will pay accordingly. And that's the big misconception is, I hear this all the time. People build these beautiful laundromats like all of us have done, and then we don't make any money. The reason they assume we don't make any money is because we spent so much money. What they don't understand is, in most cases, our revenues coming in are 5 to 10x of some of these commoditized laundromats.
Can I pin you down for a second? This is always dangerous asking
Absolutely.
you a question because it could go, another 20 minutes and I won't be able to stop you. But
true story.
I need to pin you down a little bit. Okay. So, cause you say, you're charging, 3, 4, 5x, your competitor. And the reason for that is because of your value proposition. Can you put some boundaries around that? Can you define that a little bit more, or kind of explain a little bit more? What is the value proposition, that you're providing that maybe this other store isn't? And granted, I'll say this before you say whatever, cause I may never get to say it again. Or anything else again on here. I don't know. But they're obviously charging too little. Okay. So the
Sure.
whole story isn't that you're charging 3 or 4 or 5 times more than them because you're charging a lot. It's also, they're not charging nearly enough. So that's part of the equation. But what's your part of the equation? What does a value proposition look like?
Yeah. So a value proposition is the definition. By definition, it's the totality of the experience. So it's every aspect of it. Do you have automatic doors or do you not have automatic doors? But let me break it down a little bit further for you. It's not binary. Okay. What I mean by that, it's not always an all or nothing proposition. There are different levels of how you can provide a value proposition. I'll give you a real quick example. Some laundromats out there are unattended, right? They have no attendants on duty. Everything's all automated. You call the owner. That's one level of value proposition for just that one particular thing, meaning is there someone on duty or not? But there are stores out there that are partially attended, meaning there's sometimes someone on duty. There's also stores that have fully attended, right? They always have someone on duty. But we assume that those are the 3 categories of an attendant being on duty, and they're not, because once again, it's not binary. Let me give you an example of that. Ross could have an attendant on duty. He could be open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. in his store and have attendants there. I could have attendants in my store. And if I'm paying minimum wage, providing no training, no coaching, no upward mobility, no screening processes, in other words, I have a body, someone that's alive in my store, but they're not actually providing customer service. They're on their phone. Maybe they're literally hiding in the back room. Maybe they're doing drugs. Who knows? Just because someone is there doesn't mean that your value prop is the same as mine. And I'm breaking it down to one little microcosm, but you can look at that from a totality of the entire experience of what are these levels at, because these things aren't always an all or nothing proposition. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Great answer.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, I mean, we do have unattended stores. We have semi-attended and we have fully attended. And there is a big difference even in my unattended store than many stores that are attended here. I mean, people underestimate what a bright, lit, nice, new sign outside, sign inside, new LED lights. I can't believe how many times I see people discussing waiting for the utility company to come replace LEDs for free or something. I'm not waiting. I don't care if it's next month, that's a month too long. Just put in the LED flat panels. They're $80 at Lowe's and Home Depot, and then you have to pay somebody to put them in. But it's an instant game changer. And when we buy a laundry, especially right now with equipment taking longer and things being delayed, we paint and do LEDs within the first weeks we own the store, just so you know we're there and something's happening.
Yeah, Luke.
That's good, Ross. Hey, I just want to say I'm here because I love encouraging people, and that the laundry industry is not a pizza and we're all just cutting slices of it. You know, we actually create market. When we come to us, when we offer a good service, we create market. Okay, so it's not just, well, I'm going to put a store over here and there's one over there and we're just dividing the pie. A good facility creates market. Why? Because there's more laundry in the United States than there is nice laundromats, washers and dryers to facilitate that laundry. Okay, I wouldn't be on this webinar if there wasn't, because, you know, who would want to share that information? But I want the industry to grow, and I want people in different areas that aren't served well to be served like my thousands of customers are served. If we have a problem, we take care of them. The greatest gap in the world is between knowing and doing. Most of the people on this forum, it doesn't matter if you do tokens, coins, we major on the minor in this industry. Okay. It doesn't matter how you do it. It's that you care, that you facilitate your time, that when the LED light bulb that Ross is talking about, you initiate and you see it through, you fix it. Some of y'all don't have a store yet, or you have one store. If you can't keep one store maxed out, please don't go look to get another. Out of order sign, I don't have any out of order signs. If I have one, I wouldn't be on this webinar right now. It freaks me out. So I think just making sure that we know we're not just splitting the pie with the other laundromat. We actually create market. I'm in cities where I do not know 10 years ago where people were washing their clothes. I have no clue. But you create market when you offer a good facility. You start to pick up commercial accounts. Even I'm just self-service, but we facilitate a ton of commercial accounts. Okay. So, all right, that's my minute. I had to drop that, get that off my chest.
I love it. I love it. And while you're on the soapbox, let me just throw this other question. This is why I think a lot of people are here, is to hear from you guys specifically about this. What does it take to scale out your business? As owners who are all actively scaling right now and have been for a long time, what does it take to scale, or how does somebody go from one to multiple? Yeah, Luke.
You have to have the model of one before you can have the model of two, before you can have the model of three. You can have the rest, Ross, but that's the main thing. I think we try to scale something before we have it figured out. The colors on the wall, everything, it's identical. I'm dead focused on identical. I want my staff member, although she's got a different personality everywhere, I want her doing the same role as a staff member at another store, delivering the same greeting, the same customer experience. When the customer has a problem, although she may do it with a different personality or whatnot, I want her to take the same approach and handle it the same way, if that makes sense. But make sure you have one down, have your model down. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because nothing's perfect. So don't get stuck on having it perfect, but make sure you've got your model down before you try to duplicate it, because small problems in one become big problems when you multiply.
And I'll be the first to say that we were a little behind on some of that stuff. I mean, I actually went out and saw Luke or last year to kind of see that model of handling it, and what I had handled at 2 stores started to slip when we grew, and now we have really just gone buckled down to fix those holes. Now that we're at 8 stores and growing from there, so it is very, very important. This industry, I feel like, is almost a little cart before the horse. You have to spend on some of those things like management, and now we have an answering service, so calls aren't coming to me 24/7. I could do that at 1 or 2 stores. At 8 stores, it's exhausting. So we have been fixing that in the last 6 or so months, really, and spending a tremendous amount of not just money but resources to fix that and get it right. And it's changing everything already.
That's great.
Dave, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
You
good? Me?
Yeah. Did you?
I was going to say, Chuck, just lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Dave.
You're not getting.
I wanted to once again to hit this from a little bit different angle, just so we're not all saying the same thing, because I think we all agree on these things. What I'd like to do is point out, at least for me personally, and I suspect this is the case for probably most of the people here that are really top operators, is how I learned what I learned, because I think this is really important. You know, we can sit on here for 10 hours and not possibly teach you everything that you need to know about how to operate a modernized laundromat. And yeah, we can do these over and over again, and we can write books and have podcasts and things, and those all move the needle. I just want to speak for myself, is how I learned how to do these things is conferences, is networking, is building relationships, having phone calls. I mean, in the last month or so, I've talked to all 3 of these guys multiple times. Part of it is we were putting together this webinar, but part of it is that we're just friends. We have relationships with each other. I can and have called Luke and asked him for feedback and questions on decisions that I was making. And I'm thinking about this strategy and that. And Luke doesn't necessarily have the answer. Luke has an answer. Okay. And that helps me define how I'm going to make a decision. And the same thing for all of us. And so, to bring this back to the conference for a second, this is why I put this conference on. This is why I'm so passionate about the Laundromat Millionaire Conference. And yes, attending other events like it. This is not about me. It's not about us. It's about you. It's about the industry. But I feel like a lot of the industry doesn't really know, understand, or maybe believe that there's value in networking and education. And whenever a group of people are together and they are transparent and they are authentic and they are sharing the things that they have learned, you know, Luke has learned a lot, I would imagine, from his family, because he's a 3rd-generation laundromat owner. I'm not in that situation. I can benefit from Luke's knowledge, but guess what? When I build a relationship with Luke, I'm not only learning from Luke, I'm learning from his parents and his grandparents and his other employees that used to be around that maybe aren't anymore, maybe aren't part of the business, and their experiences. I think these are all incredibly important when we talk about education and networking, is not just us sitting here telling you the answers. I think it's as valuable and as important for me to sit here on this webinar today and tell you how to go find the answers, because I can't possibly give you all the answers. But what I can do is give you the resources of how to find those. And, you know, the old saying that you're this, you know, you want to be in a room with 5 people dumber than you, or I'm sorry, smarter than you. You want to be the dumbest guy in the room, they say. You know, you want to do that in a sense of you're always driving forward and always trying to learn from others. And if you're doing that, but you're doing it in a genuine way where you're giving back to others, there's going to be a lot of value in that. Both of them talked about it, but I'll hit on it real quickly. When it comes to scaling, you're looking for things that are repeatable. That's really the word you're looking for. Is this repeatable? Ross hit on it. I think he was talking about maybe scheduling his employees or something. But basically what he was saying is what worked at 1 store doesn't work at 8 stores. Okay, I could do this process manually on a piece of paper, napkin at dinner, and put together maybe a schedule for attendants and managers. I can do that manually for 1 store. I can't do that for 8 stores. So look at your operations, and if you have a desire to scale, look at them and say, is this scalable? Is this feasible? Is it repeatable? And if it's not, then what's the answer? You may not know the answer. You probably won't know the answer. That goes back to my little tirade at the beginning. How do I get the answer? Guess what? Build relationships, network with people, attend webinars like you're doing today, listen to podcasts, read books. That's how I've learned what I've learned. So I'll just speak from my experience, but I really believe that it's the answer to how you can get your answers as well. Is everything repeatable and scalable? If it is, then the sky's the limit. You can scale like the Williford family is doing. If it's not, then as I think Luke might have said it, as Luke said, then please don't go out and get another store. Figure that out first. Figure out your operations. And we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for excellence.
Yeah. And I just to kind of piggyback on what you said, I mean, like I've already kind of, blew up Ross's head a little bit here and talk about how awesome he's doing for one and how much he's doing for the industry and influencing the industry too. But, Ross just said, hey, he flew across the country to go check out Luke and brought some stuff back from that visit with Luke. And now that's helping him scale out his business even further, right? So it doesn't even matter, where you're at. And I'm sure Luke has done the same, with other people and will continue to do the same. And so I think that's, I kind of mentioned the conference and where I think the real value, yes, there's going to be a lot of great information coming from the stage, but I think the real value is that kind of thing where you're rubbing elbows with different people in this industry who are doing things that work, but they're different. Ross does things different from Luke, who does things different from Dave, and I do things different from all three of those guys. And yet everybody has success in different ways, and you can learn from that and put together your own model. So, Dave just put a link there again. If you're interested in that conference, go check that out. laundromat.com/laundromat-millionaire-conference. So make sure and come to that thing. If you're interested in this business, come to that thing because, you're going to be rubbing elbows with these guys and others that are the same caliber. So make sure you're there. Guys, you guys have killed it. There's a few questions that have been coming in. I know you guys have been trying to chime in the chat there, which is awesome. A lot of questions about wash, dry, fold, and pickup and delivery. We really don't have a ton of time to go into that. But I will just say real quick about that is that, it's really interesting what you can do with this business, right? Luke, I don't think you do either one of those. You don't do drop off or pickup and delivery, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah. So,
and I will use this as a blurb to promote the conference. I'm going to be there. I told my wife if she comes, I'm not coming to the room till later. I'm there to network with people. I want to meet you. I want to talk to you. I love the forums. I love this stuff. But hey, guys, let's meet. Let's shake hands. Let's all talk. And it's not just me there to tell you my ideas. I want to hear what you're going through. Listen to your situation, whether it's your first acquisition or your 100th, whatever. We can all learn from one another. And then I saw in the comments about employees, and I want to give a shout out to Ross. He does an excellent job of pouring into his employees. If we took this whole forum, everybody who's on Zoom right now and all their employees, and I challenge you guys to take 5 minutes, call your employee to the back and encourage them. Give them your time. Ask them, how are you doing outside of work? Get to know them. That's the stuff that really matters to me. If everybody does that, the perpetual effect's incredible. I've seen Ross do things. He's put people in apartment complex. He's bought them cars that they wreck all the time. He's done a bunch of different stuff. But I'm telling you guys, just care. Just care. Leave this podcast if somebody or this webinar, if somebody works for you, go talk to them. Ask them how you can do a better job of serving them, not only how they can serve you. How can I make your job easier? What can I do? Do you need anything? It's small things. Anyway, another rant, but
okay, let's tackle a few of these questions. I know we got to roll here pretty soon, but I figured we start a little bit late. Maybe we can go a few minutes over. I mean, there's a lot of we really don't have a lot of time to go into a lot of detail about this. This can go on forever, but there's a lot of questions about POS systems that people are using. Now, Luke cheats and just made his own and he won't let anybody else use it. So not fair. But for Ross and Dave, you guys have any Anything to say about POS systems? Ross, you want to go first?
I mean, we currently use Square just because of kind of how simple and cheap it was to get going. We're currently taking a look at Sense. So I encourage you to, I mean, Brian has a great one, Wash, Dry, Fold POS. I encourage you to either go watch their videos of what the system does, or set up calls with each of them, because it's not a one size fits all. It will definitely depend on the services you're offering. If you're not doing drop off laundry and you're not doing pickup and delivery, and you just need to track your employees and stuff like that, then you might not find the benefit in one of these bigger systems. So I think it's going to be personal a little bit.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that, Jordan. I use the Sense POS in my stores, and I have used other systems in the past. I've used Wash Dry Full POS. I think Ross hit the nail on the head there when he said, try to figure out what your problems are. What problems are you trying to solving? See, because if you just, as much as I love our Facebook groups and our forums and stuff, if you just jump in there and say, hey, what do you guys use? Oh, I use X, I use Y, I use Z, I use this. You have no context there. Like, once again, if you don't know that person, you don't know their operations, you don't know, are they doing wash, dry, fold? Are they doing pickup and delivery? Are they doing self-serve? Are they attended? Are they unattended? Are they a multi-store owner? But here's something I would ask you to think a little bit deeper on that am glad I did. I'm not a big paralysis by analysis guy. Like, I'm not an overanalyze guy, but what I do always try to do is make decisions based on 3 to 5 years out. I try to make decisions based on where I want to go versus where I am. And I think that's really important for people to do. Now, if you own one store and it's in a small town and you're not looking to grow it, okay, fantastic. You can make a decision based on where you are, because where you are is also where you're going. But if you're looking to grow, going back to the scalable comment and growing your market and things like that, if you're saying, oh, someday I want to do pickup and delivery, it doesn't make sense to add a POS to your store that isn't going to get you where you're going. I'm not saying you can't. I've done it. Ross just said he did it with Square. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I recommend that people try to think a little further out if they can, plan for their future. And I know sometimes we don't plan on doing pickup and delivery, and then we just it happens. And so we adjust accordingly. But there's a lot of different options in our industry, much more than there were 5 or 10 years ago. And so do your homework. Don't just do a demo. Don't just make a flippant comment on a Facebook group and make a decision based on that. Do your homework, talk to the vendors that you're doing demos with, and try to most of them are pretty happy to tell you about their future plans, by the way. So maybe the product does X and Y right now, but their plan in the next 2 years is to make it do A through Z.